This is powerful and this really works. I've had some really fun experiences once I got involved with learning what Abraham, the teachings that you and Sherry are putting out. In doing so, so many things have changed in my life. Just recently, I've had the opportunities to go and do a few things that I never thought were going to be possible. Subsequently, I let go of a lot of things and found myself vulnerable and put belief in some other people, and then things changed. But things happen for a reason. And when I decided to step away from a living situation and a job I was working at, I could do whatever I wanted to do, and I asked, I said, what am I supposed to be doing? And a couple of days later, I got a phone call from my sister here in Phoenix, and she said, that they've got a project coming up, and I said, hey, I'm available to come down here and help out. And they said, okay, come on down. And I wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity had I have stayed in what I was doing and not let go of these things.
So things are always working out. And even when they don't look like they are, they are.
True.
And when they look like they are, they really are too.
Right.
But things are working out for you even when they look like they're not working out for you. And right. So asking yourself how they might be working out even when it feels like they're not working out is beneficial, because things are always working out for you even when they look like they're not working out for you.
They are. Yeah. That's the beauty of it, because on my way down here, I've been wanting to come to one of your workshops for a long time. And I was living in Hawaii, and every time I come to the mainland, I was in a different area from where you were, so I was never able to hook it up. I'm driving down from Oregon, because I left Oregon a few days ago, and coming down here. And I was stopping in the Bay Area to see my kids, and I had a little bit of time, and I went online, and I saw one of the emails that comes out that says, hey, you're going to be in Phoenix. And I said, oh my goodness. I showed up late last night and unloaded my truck and made sure I got over here. The beauty of it all is I didn't know what it was that I was going to be doing or where I was going to be going. And I've been wanting to be at one of your workshops, and then I've been studying the law of attraction and so on for a number of years, and it works. It really does work.
What you are seeing and what we are wanting to amplify is that since there are so many things in your vortex, and since your inner being knows what all of them are and how they fit together, when you get into the receptive mode, it's possible for many, many things that you care about to all be coming into place at the same time. It isn't a linear thing where one good thing leads to another good thing, leads to another good thing, leads to another good thing. 5 good things could lead to 5 more good things, could lead to 100 more good things. When you get into the receptive mode, everything that's in your vortex is now receivable by you. And so don't overthink it. Don't get too involved in trying to trace the steps, but it is very helpful to acknowledge something that you want when it comes about. And as you've heard today all day, that we found a way that you are receiving better than any other way we've described it. That receptive mode and how it plays out, that's such good information. We've been saying for many years, and if you've been listening for a while, you've undoubtedly heard this many times, that there are 2 ways to know how you're doing vibrationally. One is by how you're feeling, and the other is by what's happening. And we've always said that both are good sources of very good information. We will always continue to say that. It doesn't matter if you figured out that you're not in the receptive mode because you feel ornery, or if you figured out that you must not have been in the receptive mode because something you didn't want happened. In other words, it doesn't matter which way you figured it out. But when you start deliberately and consciously making the association between how you felt and what happened, how you felt and what happened, then what begins to happen is more of what you're wanting comes about, because you are more deliberate about the way you're pointing your mind. Is there something specific that you're wanting?
Yes.
From where you now are?
Yes. I've been given some really wonderful gifts. I'm a really talented artist in a lot of different mediums, and I've been able to put a lot of projects together and got some really great awards for it, but I find that every time I embark upon a project now, that I don't feel good enough, or things just aren't flowing right. And I don't understand why, because it's all comes out of that creative vortex that when I'm in, just everything goes wonderfully, and I come up with these ideas and they feel so powerful, and then there's no way for me to actually put them into fruition.
Well, we like the words that you just offered to us, because there are no people who come to understand this receptive mode more quickly or effectively than artists. Because you got to be there in order for what you're painting to turn out or what you're sculpting to turn out. You've already made that association with yourself, that it's not something that you can just be in any mood and it turn out right. You've got to tend to how you feel before you can write the beautiful music, or before you can write the beautiful letter or the beautiful book. In other words, artists understand what alignment is in that way. They understand the creative energy flow. And so we often say to them, as they have created many wonderful things, and more are in the vortex still to be realized by them, that we get it, how when they get that aspect of their life down, that then they can't figure out how to now market it or how to now make the project bigger. And yet it is exactly the same thing. But because their artistic ability seem to come so naturally to them, they don't stop to isolate or to understand how they got there. And so it's like this. You get there because you expect to be there. At this point in your life, that's just going to flow. You've done it enough that you don't have doubts about that happening. And so you're not remembering what those initial feelings of inspiration felt like. Are you following what we're getting at? And so you have to find some way of seeing that it's the same thing. That inspiration is inspiration, whether it's about where to have lunch or what color to use in your project, or whether it's about when to be where. In other words, you were describing some ideas of synchronicity that eventually led you to be right here. And you've got to acknowledge that there's another powerful synchronicity that helped us to find you way over there and get you way over here. Things are lining up. And so the best way to get more things to line up is to acknowledge and crow about and milk with everything you've got the things that you are seeing line up. The way to get more things line up than the things you've already got lining up is to acknowledge the things you've already got lining up. That really is the simple and expert answer.
Yes, they are. You do have expert answers. I like that.
Well, our job is easy because we've seen your vortex. We've seen your vortex, and we understand law of attraction, and we know how it plays out. And so the entire body of work that we have been doing through Esther, through all of these years, is to find some way to help you understand what the receptive mode is. But we can't give it to you. We can describe it to you, but you have to find it and acknowledge it, and then find it again and acknowledge it, and then find it again and acknowledge it until you are more chronically there. It's not hard to trust something that you just absolutely know. You never question whether you can accomplish something artistically. You know that as soon as the idea occurs to you, you can play it out all the way because you've had enough experience to know that. And we know that about everything that you want, everything that all of you want. We know that about everything that all of you want. But you don't know it because you haven't practiced knowing it yet, in some cases.
What I'm finding, I think that my issue might run down to is physical deal. I'm having mobility issues, and it's taking away a lot of my the desire or the strength.
Maybe. But every conversation you have like this takes you out of the receptive mode.
Okay.
Period. Doesn't matter if it's true, doesn't matter if you're making it up, doesn't matter if it hurts, doesn't matter if it doesn't. None of it matters except that those conversations take you out of the receptive mode, and that matters. So you reach the place where nothing matters except that you be in the receptive mode. It's sort of like evaluating what matters more. And sometimes the complaint has momentum. There's a phrase in your physical environment that has been used for a long time: don't argue for your limitations. And that's what we're talking about. You cannot be in vibrational alignment with what you want and the absence of it at the same time. This is what it comes down to. You're really going to like this. This is a really good way to wrap this day up. What it comes down to is that so much has manifested. So there's so much stuff to observe, so many experiences, so many people, so much to observe. So if you're observing and your vibration is broadcast from you because of what you're observing, then nothing can ever go beyond what is. Because what is what you're observing, and so you just keep recreating what is because it's what you're observing. So what we've been talking about to you for so long, to all of you, is never mind what is, what's in the vortex. Because what's in the vortex is what will be what is. So then we discuss a bit about semantics, because most humans want what is to be what's already manifested. They say, Abraham, it's all right that you think that I've got a fortune in my vortex, but how do I get the money out of the vortex and into the bank? Because I don't want to call it what is until it's tangible. And so what is so interesting to so many of you, that you give your attention to what is, not even realizing in many cases that your attention to what is, if it feels limiting, is preventing you from what really is in the process of becoming. That's why we were so happy to have this conversation with this woman who wanted $100,000 so that she could begin her vacational journey, to describe to her that you've already begun that journey, that so much is already underway, and that there's so much that's going to happen in the bringing of the whatever in order for it to bring the whatever. It's just an ongoing state of becoming. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would be using the example of our creative talent that you acknowledge as the basis or as the example of how it works. And then we would mimic it relative to this. What is it you're working on most recently? What is the creative project?
Working with glass.
So are you taking glass that already exists and putting it together, or are you making the glass?
Well, I'm working on something that's completely different, a new type of fusion of stained glass.
So, in the analogy that we've just offered to you about utilizing something that works, the example of something that's really been working for you, and then thinking in those terms about other things. And you began describing some limitations, some physical limitations. That would be like starting a project that you're already really good at, so there's no question in your mind how to go about that. And saying, well, I would really like this, but I'll just use that because I've got it. And what would really look good is this, but I'll just use Coke bottles instead. And I know that it would be fantastic if I brought these things together, but I'll just bring this together. Be like deliberately bringing unsatisfactory components together and expecting to get the result that's in your mind. You would never do that with your creative process. You are very picky. You are very precise about the way you go about it. The colors must harmonize, and the textures have to be just like you want them. And the science of the fusion has to be just right. And you would never be sloppy about gathering up your supplies to create this magnificent thing, would you? No. And yet, it's easy to be sloppy in thinking about it. It's easy to just throw a little junk in it that won't look good by saying I don't feel that good, or I can't do as well now as I could do then, or I'm not as strong as I once was, or I don't have the stamina that once has. That's just like gathering up stuff that isn't going to look good when you're finished and putting it all together. And you never see a sculptor taking a big pile of clay and just throwing it down and then complaining, oh, it didn't turn out right. You expect to gather it up. And that's what we're talking about here. We're asking you to bring the best of you to your creative workshop.